The streets of Seville shimmered beneath the afternoon sun, casting long shadows across the cobbled paths. I had always loved the city. The music, the rhythm, the golden warmth, but lately, something inside me felt colder than ever. My name is Lucia Martin, and for 5 years, I believed I was in love. Not the fleeting kind you read about in novels or hear in old songs, but the kind that roots itself deep, promising forever. His name was Alvaro. With his effortless charm and easy smile, he could make anyone feel special. And for the longest time, I truly thought I was the only one. Alvaro and I shared a flat just off Plaza de España. It was small, filled with secondhand furniture and the scent of fresh coffee every morning. We split the bills, shared the chores, and built the life. Or so I thought. He was a freelance photographer, often away on projects, traveling between Barcelona, Granada, and sometimes abroad. I trusted him completely. While I worked a steady job at a local publishing house, Alvaro chased his artistic dreams, and I supported him every step of the way, financially and emotionally. Then came the weekend that changed everything. It started subtly. Alvaro mentioned a work trip to Valencia. He said it was for a photography festival and would only last 3 days. He packed lightly, kissed me goodbye, and promised to call every night. But he didn't. No messages. No calls. Just silence. On the second day, I sat on our bed scrolling through my bank app, needing to make a rent transfer. But my account was almost empty. Confused, I scrolled through the transactions and stopped cold. There were withdrawals I didn't make. Hundreds of euros spent on a luxury hotel in Valencia, a seaside restaurant, and an exclusive spa. All of it linked to Alvaro's card, but deducted from my savings account. The same account he had access to. The same account I'd used to help him during dry months when his work didn't pay. My heart thudded as reality began to unspool like a bad film. I tried to call him, but it went straight to voicemail. I waited, thinking there must be an explanation. Maybe a mistake. Maybe something urgent had happened. By Sunday night, Alvaro returned. He strolled through the door with sun-kissed skin and the scent of perfume I didn't own. He looked relaxed, almost too relaxed. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched him as he unpacked a camera bag that didn't seem used at all. Then I asked him quietly, "How is Valencia?" He smiled. "Busy. Long days. I barely slept." I looked at him, truly looked at him, and in that moment, I saw someone else. Someone I didn't know. Someone who had lied. I walked into the kitchen, picked up my phone, and opened my banking app again. I turned the screen to him. "Care to explain this?" His face paled. For a second, he froze. Then, with the audacity only a liar could possess, he laughed. "Come on, Lucia. Don't be dramatic." And just like that, everything broke. I stood there, phone in hand, heart pounding louder than the ticking clock on the kitchen wall. Alvaro's laugh still lingered in the air like a bitter aftertaste. "Don't be dramatic?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "You stole from me." He scoffed, brushing past me to pour himself a glass of wine, as if we were having a petty argument over dirty dishes. "I borrowed it. I was going to put it back." I almost believed him for a split second. That was the power he had over me. The way he could twist the truth just enough to make me question myself. But not this time. Not after seeing the hotel name, the dinner for two, the spa packages. Who was she? I asked, my voice a whisper now. I wasn't sure if I wanted to know, but the silence had already begun to scream. Alvaro sipped the wine and avoided my eyes. "It doesn't matter." I stared at him, feeling something inside me fracture. 5 years of memories, of love, of late-night talks and morning coffees, crumbling. "It matters to me," I said, firmer now. "Everything matters to me. That's the difference between us." He finally met my gaze. Cold, tired, almost bored. "She was someone who made me feel alive, Lucia. Not like this." He gestured vaguely at our home, at me, as if I were the problem. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw something. But I didn't. I just stood there, silent, watching him walk away to the bedroom like nothing had happened. Later that night, I sat alone on the balcony, the city alive with music and chatter below me. My fingers traced the rim of a coffee cup gone cold. I thought about calling my sister in Malaga, but I couldn't bring myself to speak.
Not yet.
Not until I understood why I had ignored the signs for so long. The next morning, I woke to an empty flat. Alvaro was gone. No note. No message. Just an open drawer and half his clothes missing. It was like he had vanished from my life overnight, leaving only a mess behind.
I didn't cry.
Not then. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked my work emails. Routine steadied me. I replied to a few, scheduled a meeting, and forced myself to shower. But the moment I stepped into the living room and saw our photo on the shelf, him smiling, me leaning into him like a fool, I snapped. I tore it down. Then another. And another. Every trace of Alvaro's existence was shoved into a box and stuffed under the bed. I wasn't ready to throw it away yet. Maybe I needed the evidence to remind myself I hadn't imagined it all. That evening, as I walked to the small cafe near the cathedral, I ran into Carmen, an old friend from university. She looked surprised, then concerned. Lucia, are you all right? You look tired. I forced a smile. It's been a rough week. She insisted we sit and catch up. Over coffee, I told her everything, not all at once, but enough. Her eyes darkened with each word. You deserve better, she said. So much better. I nodded, not because I believed it yet, but because I wanted to. As we said goodbye, Carmen pressed something into my hand. A card. Her cousin's number. A lawyer. Just in case, she said. That night, I lay in bed alone, staring at the ceiling, the silence pressing down on me. Alvaro had taken more than money. He'd stolen my trust. My peace. My sense of safety. But he hadn't broken me. Not completely. Not yet. The days blurred together, each one stained with a dull ache I couldn't shake. Seville's bright spring sun mocked me as I moved through the motions of life. I smiled at neighbors, answered emails, and even helped organize a small charity event at the gallery. But inside, I was hollow. Alvaro hadn't come back. Not to the flat, not to me. And though I told myself I preferred it that way, there was a part of me still hoping, stupidly, that this was all some horrible misunderstanding he'd one day explain. That hope was crushed 3 weeks later. I was walking through Plaza del Salvador when I saw them. Alvaro and a woman with dark curls and red lipstick, her laugh trailing behind her like perfume. They didn't see me at first. They were too absorbed in each other, too busy living the fantasy he had stolen from me. Then his eyes met mine. He froze. She turned to look, curious. And I walked away. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I just walked. Slowly. With purpose. Like I wasn't breaking inside. That night, I called Carmen. Her cousin, the lawyer, answered within 3 rings. Señorita Lucia Ramos? Carmen mentioned you might call. His name was Mateo Galvin. His voice was calm, steady, the kind that made you feel like maybe the ground wasn't shaking after all. I told him everything about the money, the lies, the betrayal. Do you have proof he took your savings? He asked. Yes. Bank transfers. He used my card. Mateo was silent for a moment. Then, it won't be easy, but we can pursue legal action. Theft between unmarried partners is complicated, but not impossible. Legal action. The words tasted bitter. I had never imagined myself here, plotting court battles with the man I once thought I'd marry. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity. In the meantime, I began to rebuild. Slowly. Quietly. I volunteered at a women's shelter once a week, helping with creative workshops. Art had always been my escape, and now it was my bridge back to something that felt like me. One of the women there, a young mother named Bullen, had eyes that reminded me of my own when I looked in the mirror. Tired. Brave. Haunted. We bonded over paintbrushes and stories we didn't fully tell. You don't have to say it out loud, she said once after a particularly silent session. Some people don't deserve the breath it takes. She was right. But one evening, I did say it. Not to her. Not to Alvaro. To myself. I deserved better. The words were quiet, almost a whisper, but they were mine. One morning, as I was leaving the shelter, I received an unexpected call. A woman's voice. Sharp. Curious. Lucia Ramos? I think we need to talk. It's about Alvaro. Her name was Daniela, and what she told me next would change everything. I met Daniela at a small cafe near the Triana Bridge, the kind of place where tourists sip sangria under umbrellas and locals read the paper in silence. She was already there when I arrived, wearing sunglasses and a crisp white blouse, her hands wrapped around a cup of espresso like she was trying to steady herself. She stood as I approached, offering a hand. Lucia. Thank you for coming. I nodded cautiously and sat across from her. There was a long pause before she spoke again. I didn't know about you. Not until last week. I found your number saved on Alvaro's old phone. He left it at my place. I stared at her. Your place? She gave a short, humorless laugh.
Yes.
I was the woman he took on that little getaway to Marbella. The one he paid for with your money, apparently. My stomach twisted, but I didn't let it show. Daniela looked away, ashamed. I thought we were exclusive. He said he was done with someone toxic from his past. That he was finally happy.
Toxic. Of course he did.
She reached into her bag and pulled out a small leather notebook. I started noticing gaps.
Lies.
So I kept notes. Times, dates, places. Things he said. It's all here. I hesitated, then took it. The pages were filled with meticulous handwriting. Every dinner, every trip, even receipts and photos. I flipped through it, finding one entry that matched the exact date and location of the hotel Alvaro had booked using my savings. Daniela watched my face carefully. I didn't come to hurt you. I came because he hurt me too. And I thought maybe we could help each other. I believed her. Not just because of the notebook, but because her pain was real, worn like mine, under the skin. We talked for over an hour. Turns out, Alvaro had been juggling at least 3 women, me, Daniela, and someone named Irene in Valencia. He had told each of us a different story. That he was a struggling entrepreneur. That he was a writer. That he had family money tied up in property disputes. All lies. I handed Mateo the notebook the next morning. He scanned through it, his expression unreadable. This helps, he said simply. A pattern of deception like this, supported by dates and proof of financial transactions, strengthens your case significantly. I nodded, still numb. Will he be arrested? That depends. But at the very least, we can file a formal complaint and freeze any access he has to your remaining accounts. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Alvaro. We need to talk. I know you're angry, but don't do anything stupid. Stupid? I didn't reply. Instead, I blocked his number and walked down to the Guadalquivir River, letting the breeze whip through my hair, my fingers gripping Daniela's notebook like it was armor. Alvaro thought I'd break, that I'd fade quietly into the background of his life. But I wasn't the same woman he left behind. And I was done being silent. Word travels fast in Seville, especially when your story involves fraud, betrayal, and stolen money. It wasn't long before I started getting messages, some anonymous, some from numbers I didn't recognize. A few were cruel. Others were whispers of solidarity. But one in particular caught my attention. I think we need to talk. I have information about Alvaro. You're not the only one. Irene. Daniela had mentioned her, Alvaro's third, exclusive relationship. I hesitated, wondering if this was some kind of trap, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a small bookstore cafe near Alameda de Hercules, and she walked in with the air of someone who had been fighting invisible battles for a long time. Irene? I asked. She nodded. Lucia. I'm sorry you're in this mess too.
She didn't waste time.
She took out her phone and opened an app. Dozens of photos, screenshots, and voice messages. Alvaro's voice, smooth as ever, spinning lies like silk. Promises of holidays, business ventures, whispered confessions of love that now made my stomach churn. I invested in one of his fake startups, Irene said bitterly. 10,000 euros.
Gone.
He said he needed capital to expand his design firm. Showed me contracts and sketches. All fake. I sat there in silence, watching the evidence stack up like a wall of truth. Irene, like Daniela, had been tricked, manipulated, drained. I tried going to the police last year, she continued. They said it was a civil matter unless more victims came forward. Now, there were 3 of us. And 3 was enough to make noise. Back at the flat, I sat with Daniela and Irene, the 3 of us surrounded by notebooks, files, screenshots, and copies of bank statements. Mateo joined us, taking notes, asking questions, piecing together the timeline of Alvaro's deceit. This is bigger than just one stolen account, Mateo said. This is systematic emotional and financial manipulation. And with 3 testimonies, we might finally get the authorities' attention. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every lie, every touch that had felt sincere, every moment I had trusted Alvaro with pieces of myself. It all felt like a cruel performance now. But there was something strangely comforting in knowing I wasn't alone. That this pain wasn't mine to carry in silence anymore. The next day, Mateo filed a report with the Seville police. We were officially listed as victims of long-term fraud. And then came the unexpected twist. While cleaning my old email inbox, one I hadn't touched in months, I found a message from Alvaro. But it wasn't addressed to me. It had been forwarded from another account, meant for a different woman entirely. Don't worry, Carino. She suspects nothing. I'll be back in Seville by next week. She thinks I'm still in Madrid for work. Just keep everything ready. The woman's name was Eva. And she wasn't from Seville. Alvaro wasn't just a liar. He was an orchestrator. A con artist. And the web he wove was about to snap. The name stuck in my mind like a splinter. Eva. A woman I'd never heard of, yet one who clearly had Alvaro's trust, or manipulation, enough to warrant deceit in our direction. The forwarded email had come from an account linked to an old project Alvaro once claimed was dead. It wasn't. It was his mask, still in use. Irene, quick to act, began scouring social media for any trace of this Eva. Within an hour, she found her, Eva Martin, a graphic designer based in Valencia. Her page was carefully curated, soft pastel tones, inspirational quotes, and the occasional romantic post featuring a man with his face always hidden or turned away. We didn't need the face. The outline, the posture, it was Alvaro. I don't want to pull another woman into this mess, I said, though my heart burned with a need for justice. Daniela leaned forward. But if she's still under a spell, she deserves to know. Just like we did. Mateo suggested a direct approach. Truth, evidence, no assumptions. So we drafted a message, one signed by the 3 of us, complete with screenshots, photos, and audio clips. I hit send, heart thudding. Then we waited. 2 days passed. Silence. I had almost given up when a voice message arrived on my phone.
Hola.
This is Eva. I've read everything. I don't know what to say.
Can we speak? Please.
In person, if possible. The next morning, we met her at the train station. Eva was tall, graceful, and visibly shaken. She had traveled overnight from Valencia, her face a storm of disbelief and fury. 3 years, she said as we sat down in a quiet cafe near Plaza de España. He told me he was stuck in a legal battle with an ex, and that's why we couldn't go public. I even lent him money for his so-called legal fees. She showed us the bank transfers. Over 20,000 euros. He told me he was starting a design retreat in Granada, she added. I visited the place once. It looked abandoned. He said renovations were underway. I believed him. We all looked at each other. This was no longer just a case of betrayal. It was a carefully constructed pattern, layers of deceit, each woman a pawn in Alvaro's long game of manipulation. Mateo's jaw tightened. We need to take this higher. For victims across 2 cities. This is beyond personal grievance. This is criminal enterprise. Eva, trembling, agreed to file a joint report. The Seville police listened. And this time they acted. We were assigned a detective, someone who took one look at the compiled documents and said, "This is going to blow up." And it did. That evening, as we sat in Irene's flat with the TV humming in the background, a local news anchor's voice caught our attention. Authorities have launched a formal investigation into a Seville-based man suspected of conning multiple women across Spain. Sources suggest the number of victims may rise as more come forward. Alvaro hadn't returned from Madrid. Or perhaps he never even went. Maybe he was already running. But he couldn't run forever. His lies had finally ignited something real. And the chase had begun. The investigation gave our pain a purpose. The detective assigned to our case, Inspector Ramos, was calm and methodical, a man who had clearly seen the worst of human behavior, yet still believed in justice. He encouraged us to remain available and to share everything we had, no matter how small. We combed through messages, emails, even gift receipts. Every breadcrumb led further into Alvaro's web. It turned out Eva wasn't the only other woman. There was also a woman named Clara from Malaga, whom Alvaro had promised to marry when the time was right. She found us after the news segment aired, trembling as she called the police hotline. Another victim. "I'm such a fool," she wept when we met her. "No," I told her. "He made fools of all of us. That's what predators do." We were building a case, not of heartbreak, but of fraud, financial abuse, identity deception. Inspector Ramos said it wasn't just about us anymore. Alvaro had created fake companies, faked contracts, even manipulated CVs to gain credibility in local creative circles. He had stolen over 100,000 euros in total. We learned that he used different names for different women. With Eva, he was Alvaro Delgado. With Clara, he was Alvaro Ruiz. With me, he was just Alvaro, no last name until much later. He operated like a chameleon, blending in wherever he went, charming his way through vulnerability. The police placed a tracker on his bank activity. His last known transaction was at a petrol station outside Córdoba. That's when the alert went out, wanted for questioning in multiple fraud investigations. "I want to be there when he's caught," Mateo said, his voice cold but focused. I nodded. So did Eva. So did Clara. We had all lost time, trust, and dignity to this man. But we weren't victims anymore. We were witnesses. Fighters. We wanted closure. Not just for us, but for whoever else had yet to find out they'd been used. One night, while we were helping the authorities compile a timeline of Alvaro's movements, Eva received an email. No subject. No signature. Just one line. "You should have stayed quiet." It was him. Alvaro. We forwarded the message immediately, and Ramos traced the IP address to an internet cafe in Zaragoza. He had gone north. Within hours, a team was dispatched. But Alvaro was slippery. He left before they arrived. Still, the pressure was mounting. He knew he was being hunted. And now he knew we were the ones chasing him. Inspector Ramos knew Alvaro wouldn't run forever. Men like him needed admiration, even in the shadows. He would reach out again, sooner or later. We had to be ready. With the help of a cybercrime expert, a plan was set in motion. Using Eva's old email thread with Alvaro, we crafted a carefully worded message. It sounded desperate, emotional, like Eva had cracked under pressure. "I can't do this anymore. The others are getting suspicious. I need to see you. Just us." The email was sent from a public library in Granada to avoid being traced back to us. Then we waited. Days passed. Then the reply came. One night. Hotel Lavapiés.
Madrid.
Don't be late. It was him. The police moved quickly. Surveillance teams checked into rooms surrounding the hotel suite. Eva, brave as ever, volunteered to be the bait. She would wear a wire, and Ramos would be in the next room, ready to intervene. Mateo and I sat in a surveillance van outside, hands clammy, eyes on the screens. Every second felt stretched to eternity. At 9:07 p.m., Alvaro walked through the hotel entrance.
Calm. Confident.
As if none of this chaos had touched him. He was wearing a dark coat and carried a bouquet of cheap carnations. We watched as he approached the room. Eva opened the door. Her hands didn't shake. "Did you come alone?" he asked. She nodded, swallowing her disgust. Good, he said. Then we can fix this. But before he could close the door behind him, officers swarmed in. Alvaro froze, caught in the middle of his latest lie. It was over. Or so we thought. As they led him away in cuffs, he didn't struggle. He smiled. A quiet, knowing smile that chilled me more than anything he'd ever done. In the interrogation room, Alvaro refused to speak. No names, no answers. Just a cryptic remark. I'm not the only one.
What did he mean by that?
Ramos was furious. He's playing games. But I wasn't so sure. Alvaro had always been manipulative, but not random. That smile had meant something. Eva, Clara, Mateo, and I stayed in Madrid for days, trying to process it all. Alvaro was now facing multiple charges, from identity theft to grand larceny. He would go to prison, likely for years. But the question haunted me. Who else had he fooled? And had we really uncovered the full extent of his deception? Because in the end, a man like Alvaro never plays alone. He plays to win. Days after Alvaro's arrest, things began to settle, or so it seemed. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't uncovered everything. There were too many holes, too many unanswered questions. Eva, Clara, Mateo, and I gathered at the apartment one evening to discuss the latest developments. The police had told us the case was almost closed, that Alvaro was locked away and wouldn't be able to hurt anyone again. But the more I thought about his cryptic last words, the more uneasy I became. I'm not the only one. Who else had Alvaro been working with? And why had he suddenly turned on me, especially after all the years we'd known each other? We went over every detail, every transaction, every place Alvaro had visited. Clara, with her sharp eye for detail, pointed out something I'd missed in his financial records. There were multiple large transfers, almost as if someone else was behind the scenes, pulling strings. Someone's been helping him, she said, her voice steady, but filled with concern. These transfers don't make sense. There's a third party involved here. I turned to Eva. Do you recognize any of these names? She scanned the list, her brow furrowing. One name stood out to her, Martín Valdez. Martín, she said softly. He was a client of mine years ago. A businessman, but not the kind you'd want to do business with. He's got connections to some unsavory people. The pieces were falling into place. Alvaro had always been clever, but he wasn't the mastermind. Martín Valdez was the key. I called Ramos. He agreed to meet us, and we gathered at a cafe in the city, far from the watchful eyes of any potential leaks. The police were still monitoring Alvaro's every move, but we needed to investigate Martín on our own terms. What do we know about him? Ramos asked as we sat down. Clara opened her laptop, pulling up the data she'd gathered on Martín Valdez. He's been involved in a variety of shady dealings. Money laundering, arms trafficking, you name it. But the interesting thing is, he's been under the radar for the last 5 years. No arrests, no charges, just a ghost. I frowned. And now he's linked to Alvaro? Eva nodded.
Yes.
The connection is old, but it's there. Martín might be the one who's been funding Alvaro's scams. If he's still pulling strings, then he's our next target. The conversation grew tense as we formulated a plan. We couldn't rely on the police to help us capture Martín. They were still focused on Alvaro. This was our fight now. We decided to take a risk. Eva would reach out to Martín. He wouldn't suspect a thing, especially not from someone like her. She'd done it before, but this time, it felt different. I'll arrange a meeting, she said, her voice low but determined. I'll bring him in. I felt a pang of doubt. Could we really trust this plan? Would Martín be as slippery as Alvaro had been? But I had no choice but to believe in Eva, in her ability to play the game. The trap was set. Now, we just had to wait. The evening of the meeting, everything felt unusually quiet. The calm before the storm, I thought. I sat in the shadows of the cafe, watching the door, heart racing. The plan was risky, but we had no other choice. Eva was the only one who could get close enough to Martín Valdez without raising suspicion. The rest of us, we'd stay in the background, ready to intervene if necessary. I checked my phone one last time. Eva had confirmed the meeting.
She was on her way.
I could only hope she could play her role without slipping up. As the minutes ticked by, I felt the weight of the last few days pressing down on me. Alvaro had been taken down, but the network he had been a part of was still out there. Martín Valdez was the final piece of the puzzle, and this was our only chance to catch him. Then I saw her. Eva entered the cafe, glancing around carefully as she made her way to the back corner where Martín was waiting. He was already seated, a tall, imposing figure, wearing his usual smug expression. He was older than I remembered, but there was no mistaking him. Eva walked over, her movements calm, controlled. I could tell she was putting on her best poker face. She sat down across from him, and for a moment, everything felt suspended in time. "Martín," she said, her voice steady, masking the tension underneath. "It's been a long time." His eyes flickered with recognition, but only for a second. Then, his usual arrogance returned. "Eva," he said with a smirk. "I didn't expect to hear from you again. What is it you want this time?" Eva leaned in slightly, her tone cool. "I need information. You've been working with my friend, Alvaro, haven't you? I'm sure you two had some interesting business dealings." Martín's eyes narrowed. He was smart, and he wasn't about to give anything away easily. "I don't know what you're talking about," he replied, his voice low and cautious. Eva didn't flinch. "I think you do. I've been digging into your finances. I know about the transfers, the money that went to Alvaro's account. And I know about you, Martín. Your past. Your connections." He didn't respond right away, but his grip on his glass tightened, his fingers twitching as if he were about to explode. But then, he leaned back in his chair, a twisted smile spreading across his face. "You think you can just waltz in here and threaten me?" he asked, his voice dripping with contempt. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. You really think the police will be able to stop me?" Eva didn't back down. "You're finished, Martín. The police are already on their way, and this time, they'll catch you. All I need is your cooperation." For a moment, there was silence, thick with tension. Martín's gaze hardened. He knew he was caught. But instead of backing off, he made a dangerous move. He reached for his phone, his fingers hovering over the screen. I felt my breath catch. I knew what he was doing. At that moment, I signaled to Clara, Mateo, and Ramos. We were ready. We had no time to waste. Before Martín could react, the cafe door burst open, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the quiet room. The police had arrived. They stormed in, quickly surrounding the table. "Martín Valdez," one of the officers said, his voice commanding. "You're under arrest for money laundering, illegal arms trafficking, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Martín's face twisted with rage. He stood up, but before he could make a move, the officers had him restrained, his phone falling from his hand to the floor with a dull thud. Eva remained calm throughout the entire ordeal. She looked at me, her eyes meeting mine for a brief moment, and I could see the relief written on her face. We had done it. As Martín was led away, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. The nightmare was over. We had taken down both Alvaro and Martín. But I knew this wouldn't be the end of everything. There would always be more shadows lurking in the distance, more threats we couldn't anticipate. For now, though, we had won.